After days away, all I wanted was the quiet comfort of my own home and family. But the moment I stepped onto my porch, my world exploded in blinding lights and shouted commands, turning my safe haven into a terrifying battleground. The crunch of gravel under my tires was the sweetest sound I'd heard all week. 3 days in Cleveland for a tech conference, living off stale hotel coffee and forced networking smiles. All I wanted was my own bed, the smell of my wife Chloe's lavender shampoo, and a good night story from my 6-year-old Maya. My headlights cut through the familiar darkness of our quiet, tree-lined street, illuminating our cozy blue house. Home. I killed the engine, and the silence of the suburbs wrapped around me like a warm blanket. For a moment, I just sat there, letting the exhaustion of the drive seep out of my bones. My laptop bag felt like it was filled with bricks as I slung it over my shoulder. I grabbed my suitcase from the back, the wheels rattling softly on the asphalt driveway. The porch light was on, a welcoming golden beacon. I could already picture it. Chloe would open the door before I even got my key in the lock, a sleepy smile on her face. Maya would probably be fast asleep, her little hand clutching the stuffed elephant I'd bought her at the airport. A perfect, boring, beautiful end to a long week. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in my peripheral vision, down the street. I paused, key in hand, and squinted into the darkness. A car, moving without its headlights on. It rolled forward with a predatory slowness that made the small hairs on my arms stand up. It wasn't a neighbor's car. It was low, dark, and angular. As it drew closer, the moonlight glinted off the roof-mounted light bar. A squad car. My heart gave a little thump of anxiety. Cops on our street was a rare sight. Maybe Mrs. Henderson's cat got stuck up a tree again. I tried to dismiss it, turning back to my front door. My problems were tired feet and a need for a hot shower, not whatever this was. I slid the key into the lock. Then the world exploded in white light. It was blinding, 2 powerful spotlights pinning me against my own front door. I threw a hand up to shield my eyes, my silhouette stark and exposed. The squad car's engine, silent before, now growled to life as it screeched to a halt at the end of my driveway, blocking me in. A door slammed open. "Freeze! Get your hands in the air! Now!" The voice was like cracking ice. It wasn't a request. It was a command that bypassed my brain and went straight to my muscles. My keys clattered to the welcome mat. My hands shot up, trembling slightly. My laptop bag slid off my shoulder and hit the porch with a heavy thud. "Turn around! Slowly!" I did as I was told, my mind racing, trying to catch up with the reality of the situation. What was happening? Was this my house? Was I dreaming? I turned to face the blinding lights, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. A figure emerged from the glare, a dark shape becoming terrifyingly clear. It was an officer, maybe in his late 30s, with steely eyes and a jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle bulging. And in his hands, held steady in a 2-handed grip, was his service weapon. It was pointed directly at my chest. "On your knees. Get on your knees and put your hands on your head." The cold of the concrete porch seeped through the knees of my slacks. The gravel bits dug into my palms as I followed his order, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and pure primal fear. The dark, unforgiving circle of the muzzle seemed to expand until it was the only thing I could see. The most terrifying O in the world. "Officer, there's been a mistake," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "I live here. My name is Marcus Thorne. My wife and daughter are inside." "Shut up," he barked, taking a step closer. The beam from the flashlight mounted on his gun danced across my face. "We got a call. Burglary in progress. Matches your description." My description? A black man in a business suit? In his own driveway? The absurdity of it was so stark it was almost laughable, but the gun pointed at my heart suffocated any trace of humor. "Officer, my ID is in my wallet, in my back pocket. My keys are on the mat. You can check. You can run my plates. This is my home." He ignored me, his focus absolute. He was operating on a script, and I was just a character who hadn't learned his lines. Don't move. Don't even breathe wrong. I could hear him speaking into his shoulder mic, his voice low and tense. Suspect is secured. On the premises. My blood ran cold. Suspect. He'd already tried and convicted me in his head. All I could think about was Chloe and Maya sleeping inside, oblivious. What if they heard the shouting? What if Chloe came to the door to see what was wrong? The thought sent a jolt of ice through my veins. I had to end this now. I had to make him see reason. Please, I whispered, the word tasting like ash. My family. Just as the word left my lips, I heard the telltale click of the front door's deadbolt being unlocked from the inside. It was a sound I heard every night, a sound that always meant safety and comfort. But right now it was the sound of a guillotine dropping. The door creaked open, spilling the warm yellow light of our foyer onto the porch, right into the middle of this nightmare. And standing there, silhouetted in the doorway, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, was my wife. "Marcus?" Chloe's voice was soft with confusion. "Honey, what's all that noise?" "No! Chloe, go back inside. Lock the door." The words ripped from my throat, raw and desperate. But she was frozen, her hand half raised to her mouth, her eyes wide with a horror that mirrored my own. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the gun. At the dark, unwavering barrel pointed at her husband's chest. The officer's head snapped towards her, his body tensing like a coiled spring. "Ma'am, get back in the house. Show me your hands," he roared, his voice cracking with adrenaline. He was trying to watch us both, a dangerous dance of divided attention. The gun barrel swung from my chest to the doorway, and back again. Chloe finally let out a sound, a choked sob. "Marcus? Oh my God, what's happening?" Her bare feet took a half step onto the cold porch. "Stay right there!" the officer screamed. He took a step back, widening his stance, as if preparing for an attack from two fronts. "Ma'am, are you in danger? Is this man threatening you?" The question was so utterly insane, so disconnected from reality, that for a second I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. It burned through the fear. Threatening her? She's my wife. We live here. For the love of God, look around you. Does this look like a break-in? My voice was pleading, shouting, trying to shatter the psychotic bubble he had created around us. But he was deaf to it. He was seeing what he wanted to see, what the call had told him to expect. A suspect. A potential accomplice. A hostage. "I'm not going to ask you again, ma'am. Step away from him and get on the ground." "Get on the ground?" Chloe whispered, her face pale in the flashing glare of his flashlight. She looked at me, kneeling on the concrete, and a flicker of understanding, of shared terror, passed between us. She wasn't going to leave me here. That was my greatest fear. Her loyalty, her love, was going to get her killed. "Chloe, please," I begged, my voice breaking. "Do what he says. Just do what he says. It's okay. We'll sort this out." But before she could move, before the officer could escalate his commands, a tiny voice cut through the tension. It was the sound that defined my world, the sound that could melt the hardest parts of my heart. And right now it was the most terrifying sound I could imagine. "Mommy, who's that man?" Maya, my little girl. She was standing behind Chloe, peeking around her mother's leg. She was in her pink unicorn pajamas, her hair a mess from sleep, and she was clutching the stuffed elephant I had just bought her. Her small face was a mask of confusion, her eyes blinking against the harsh police lights. She saw me on my knees, and her brow furrowed. "Daddy, why are you on the floor?" The world stopped. The shouting, the fear, the pounding of my own heart, it all receded into a dull hum. The only thing that mattered was my daughter's face. My daughter, seeing her father held at gunpoint on their own front porch. A memory was being burned into her mind right now, a scar that might never fade. And I saw it. I saw the change in the officer. For the first time, his aim wavered. The muzzle of the gun dipped, just a fraction of an inch, but it was enough. His eyes darted from me to Maya, and the rock-solid certainty he'd worn like body armor finally cracked. The steely glare softened into something I couldn't read. Confusion, doubt, shame. He saw my daughter in her unicorn pajamas, and the simple narrative of good guy versus bad guy collapsed in on itself. He wasn't staring down a perpetrator anymore. He was staring down a father. A tense silence fell over the driveway, broken only by the chirping of crickets. It felt like an eternity. He was processing, his mind catching up to the scene in front of him. This was my chance. Keeping my voice as low and steady as I could, I said, "Officer, look at my little girl. Please. Just put the gun down. Let's just talk." He opened his mouth to speak. I held my breath, praying it would be the words to end this madness. Maybe it would be an apology. Maybe just a simple command to stand up. Anything. Anything but this. But the words never came. Instead, a new sound pierced the night, the high-low wail of a siren, then another. They were close, terrifyingly close. Red and blue lights flashed against the houses down the street, painting our quiet suburban world in the colors of violence and chaos. A second squad car, and then a third, screamed around the corner, their tires screeching as they converged on my home. Backup had arrived, responding to a call of a burglary in progress, with a suspect apprehended, and they were rolling in hot, expecting the worst. The officer's brief moment of doubt vanished, replaced by a fresh wave of panic. He raised his gun again, pointing it squarely at my chest as a half-dozen more doors slammed open in the street. The scene devolved into chaos. Doors slammed, boots hit the asphalt, and a chorus of shouted commands filled the air. "Hands! Show me your hands! Drop it! Drop the weapon!" I realized with a jolt of horror they were yelling at me, assuming the thud of my laptop bag had been a weapon hitting the porch. The first officer, the one who started this nightmare, was now just one part of a semicircle of drawn guns, all pointed at our front door. At my family. "Daddy!" Maya's voice was a terrified squeak. She buried her face in Chloe's leg, her little body trembling. That sound, that pure, unadulterated fear in my daughter's voice, flipped a switch in me. The fear I had for myself evaporated, replaced by a cold, protective rage so intense it felt like ice in my veins. My daughter would not remember her father cowering on his knees. "Everyone stand down," I roared, the voice that came out of me deeper and more commanding than my own. I pushed myself up from my knees to my feet in one smooth, deliberate motion. It was a stupid, reckless move. A dozen different things could have gone wrong. A trigger-happy rookie, a nervous twitch, a misinterpreted signal. But I didn't care. I was done being a victim on my own porch. The circle of officers tensed. Guns lifted. The first officer shouted, "Don't move! This is my house!" "Huck," I yelled, spreading my arms wide, making myself as big and non-threatening a target as possible. "My name is Marcus Thorne. My wife Chloe and my daughter Maya are standing in our doorway. There is no burglary. There is no threat. You are terrorizing my family based on a mistake." My words hung in the air, amplified by the sudden, shocked silence. The new officers who had arrived expecting a violent confrontation were now looking at the scene with fresh eyes. They saw the business suit, now wrinkled and stained with dirt from the porch. They saw the suitcase by the steps. They saw Chloe in her pajamas, clutching our crying child. And they saw the first officer, the original aggressor, whose face was now a mask of frantic uncertainty. The narrative was crumbling, and they could see it. A new figure pushed through the line of uniforms. He was older, with graying temples and a sergeant's stripes on his sleeve. His expression was grim, his eyes scanning every detail of the scene with a practiced, weary assessment. He didn't have his gun drawn. "What the hell is going on here, Davis?" the sergeant demanded, his voice a low growl directed at the first officer. Officer Davis flinched. "Sarge, we got a call." A 911 hang-up from this address, then a second call from a neighbor reporting a suspicious man trying to break in. Matched his description. "His description?" the sergeant repeated, his gaze flicking to me, then back to Davis. "A black man in this neighborhood? That's your probable cause? Thorne, wait a minute." The sergeant's eyes narrowed, not with suspicion, but with dawning recognition. He took a step forward, looking past me at the house. He looked at the meticulously kept garden, the welcome mat Chloe had picked out, the small tricycle parked near the garage. Then he looked back at my face. Marcus Thorne? You're Dr. Thorne, from County General? The air left my lungs in a rush. Dr. Thorne. Not suspect. Not perp. A name. A title. A person. Yes, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm a surgeon at County General. I just got home from a conference in Cleveland. The sergeant's face was unreadable, but I saw his shoulders slump almost imperceptibly. He turned his head slowly, his gaze sweeping over the assembled officers, their weapons still raised. Guns down, he said, his voice quiet but carrying the unmistakable weight of command. All of you, holster your weapons. Now. Slowly, hesitantly, the dark circle of muzzles began to disappear. Clicks of safeties engaging echoed in the night. Officer Davis was the last to lower his weapon, his arm seeming to move in slow motion, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. His eyes met mine for a brief moment, and in them I saw a flicker of the regret the title of this story promised. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. Chloe, honey, take Maya inside, I said, never taking my eyes off the officers. She nodded, her face streaked with tears, and quickly guided our still sobbing daughter back into the safety of our home. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving me alone to face the uniformed crowd. The sergeant walked up the driveway, stopping a few feet away from me. He looked exhausted. Dr. Thorne, he began, my name is Sergeant Miller. On behalf of my department, I apologize for the misunderstanding. The word misunderstanding was so inadequate it was insulting. It was a pebble trying to fill a canyon. A misunderstanding? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Sergeant, your officer pointed a loaded gun at my chest, on my property, in front of my family. He screamed at my wife and terrified my 6-year-old daughter. That's a bit more than a misunderstanding. Miller winced. I understand your anger, sir, and you have every right to it. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Davis, he snapped, turning to the young officer. My car. Now, you and I are going to have a long talk. Aye. Davis looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole as he trudged toward the sergeant's vehicle. Miller turned back to me. We'll conduct a full internal review. With all due respect, Sergeant, I interrupted. I'm not interested in your review right now. I want to know who called this in. A look of unease crossed Miller's face. Sir, that's part of the ongoing... Who was the neighbor? I pressed, my voice hardening. The one who saw a suspicious man matching my description? There are only 3 houses with a direct line of sight to my front door. It was Henderson, wasn't it? Or maybe the Garcias? Sergeant Miller shifted his weight, his eyes refusing to meet mine. He was stonewalling, and I knew why. He didn't want a lawsuit to become a neighborhood war, but I wasn't letting this go. This wasn't just about a rogue cop. This was about the poison that allowed that cop to see me as a threat in the first place. I have security cameras, Sergeant, I said, the lie coming to me in a flash of inspiration. 4 of them, high definition, with night vision, and I can assure you, the moment I get inside, I'm going to be reviewing every single second of footage from tonight, not just of your offices, but of every window on this street. That did it. The sergeant's professional mask finally broke. He looked pained, trapped. He ran a hand over his face and let out a long, weary sigh. Look, Doc, it wasn't Henderson or Garcia. The call came from inside your house. The sergeant's words didn't compute. They were puzzle pieces from a different box, nonsensical and jarring. Inside my house? That's impossible. My wife and daughter are the only ones home. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation, but it kept hitting a wall of disbelief. Chloe? Never. Maya? She's 6. It made no sense. Sergeant Miller saw the storm of confusion on my face. We have to be sure the scene is secure, Dr. Thorne. Are you certain you're the only one who was supposed to be arriving home tonight? Yes, I'm certain, I said, turning and walking back towards my front door, my legs feeling like lead. I pushed it open and stepped into the warm foyer. The chaotic flashing lights from outside cast long, dancing shadows down the hallway. Chloe was there, kneeling on the floor, holding Maya tightly against her chest. Maya's face was buried in her mother's shoulder, her small body still racked with quiet sobs. Chloe, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The police. They said the 911 call came from inside. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a dawning, horrified comprehension. Oh, Marcus. Oh, no. She gently pulled Maya away from her shoulder. In our daughter's small, clenched fist was Chloe's cell phone. Honey, Chloe said softly, did you call someone on Mommy's phone? Maya nodded, her lower lip trembling. She wouldn't look at me. There was a man outside, she whimpered, pointing a tiny finger towards the front window. I saw him on the new doorbell app. A man in the dark. I got scared. And just like that, the final, devastating piece clicked into place. The doorbell camera. The one I had installed just last month for peace of mind. I'd set it up on Chloe's phone. Maya, likely woken by the sound of my car, had seen the notification. She'd opened the app and seen a grainy, night vision silhouette of a man at her front door. She didn't recognize her own father. She got scared, fumbled with the phone, and in her panic, hit the emergency call button and then immediately hung up. A child, trying to be brave, trying to protect her home from the shadow she didn't understand, was me. The bitter irony was a physical ache in my chest. The very system I set up to keep my family safe had been the catalyst for putting them in mortal danger. I knelt and pulled my daughter into my arms, holding her so tightly I could feel her little heart beating against mine. You did nothing wrong, sweetie, I murmured into her hair. You were so brave. Daddy's here now. Everyone is safe. I looked up at Chloe, a silent, heartbroken conversation passing between us. Sergeant Miller was standing in the open doorway, his face etched with a deep, profound weariness. He'd heard everything. The 911 hang-up put a car in motion, he said quietly. Standard procedure. The dispatcher got a second call while they were en route. Your neighbor, Martha Henderson, 2 doors down, said she saw a man lurking around your porch, trying the door, and then saw our unit arrive. She confirmed the suspicion. So that was it. A scared little girl's mistake, amplified by a neighbor's suspicion, and then ignited by an officer who saw my skin color before he saw a homeowner. A perfect, tragic storm of fear and prejudice. I stood up, holding Maya in my arms like a shield. I walked back onto the porch. Officer Davis was still standing by the sergeant's car, his posture stiff, his face pale. The regret was radiating off him in waves now. It was a palpable thing. This was no longer a scene. It was the wreckage of his career. Officer Davis, I said, my voice level and cold. He looked up, his eyes filled with a desperate shame. 12 minutes ago, you pointed your gun at me. For 12 minutes, my life and the life I have with my family was in your hands. I'm a surgeon, officer. Every single day, I hold people's lives in my hands. I'm expected to make split-second, life-or-death decisions based on training, evidence, and clear, unbiased judgment. I don't get to make mistakes based on what I think I see or what I'm afraid of. Today, you did. You failed that test. You didn't see a tired father coming home from a business trip. You saw a threat that wasn't there. I shifted Maya in my arms. She was finally quiet, just watching him with wide, curious eyes. This is my daughter, Maya. I want you to look at her. I want you to remember her face. Because the terror you caused her tonight is the consequence of your mistake. That is something you will have to live with. He finally broke. His face crumpled, and he looked down at his boots. Sir, Dr. Thorne, I am so sorry. There's no excuse. I was wrong. His voice was thick with emotion. The regret was real. I could see that. But it didn't undo a single second of the trauma. No, there is no excuse, I said. An apology isn't enough. I'll be filing a formal complaint tomorrow morning, Sergeant. I'll be speaking to the chief, and to the press if I have to. This can't happen again. Sergeant Miller just nodded. I understand, Doctor. I'll be waiting for your call. As the last of the police cars pulled away, their lights finally extinguished, a figure scurried across the lawn from 2 houses down. It was Martha Henderson, a small bird-like woman wrapped in a housecoat. Oh, Marcus, I am so sorry, she stammered, wringing her hands. I just saw the police car, and your dark clothes, and I assumed. You assumed wrong, Martha, I said, my voice devoid of warmth. I didn't have any anger left for her. I was just empty. I turned without another word and carried my daughter back inside, closing the door on the quiet street, on my neighbor, and on the mess they had all made. Inside, the three of us huddled together on the couch. The house was silent again, but it wasn't the peaceful silence I had been craving. It was a fragile, wounded quiet. I could still smell the lavender in Chloe's hair, and Maya was finally drifting off to sleep on my chest, her little hand clutching my shirt. I had everything I wanted. I was home. But the welcoming golden light of my porch would forever be tainted by the memory of blinding white spotlights, and the simple, perfect, boring beauty of my life now had a scar running right through the heart of it. We were safe, but we would never be the same.